Call me with your light. I'm sorry that you're feeling this way. It's not the thing. No, no, no. I bet you keep on running and thinking those simple things. Oh, leaving me and mistreating me. No, 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 let me know. Baby, please stop calling me
That is my favorite song right now. And shout out to the team, the Smooth Vacation Experience team, who are customers and fans of what we're doing with Big Black Tea. Thank you all so much for making this amazing playlist for us to start off every show that I do now with our amazing guests on the Guide Live show. You know, I'm really excited about today's guest because today's guest is a legend in the cybersecurity space, and I'm excited to talk with him. Before I get into the conversation with him, would love to get a sense of where everyone is tuning in from this lovely Monday afternoon for some of you all, Monday morning for others as well. Where are you tuning in from? Is this your first time listening? Let us know. Talk to us in the comments and we'll show you love and give you a shout out. The guy I'm talking to today, man, he's super cool. Ted, I've had great conversations with Ted in the past. You know, Mr. Ted Harrington is the guru, the bestseller of Hackable, how to do application security right. Yeah, you heard it. Hackable, how to do application security right. He's the executive partner at Independent Security Evaluators, ISC, and their company is made up of ethical hackers. I know you're probably like, wait, what? There's ethical hackers? There's such a thing? Yes, there's bad hackers, and there's the good guys, and Ted is one of the good guys. And they've been doing security assessments and security consulting for a long, long time. Think all the way back to 2005. They've been hired by hundreds of companies and have helped them discover tens of thousands of security vulnerabilities in their code, in their companies, and just in the way that they treat cyber intelligence. And they've helped fix every single one. He's been featured in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, USA Today, Financial Times, Wired, the CBS News on Assignment, and today, the Guide Live show. And if that's not enough for you, he's probably going to be back in the future, right? But this guy has done a lot. And bottom line is that he knows what he's talking about because he's written a book on it, Hackable. He's going to talk a little bit more about what Hackable is about today. And more importantly, how do you protect yourself from cybersecurity threats? And what does he see as some of the trends in the future of work that he's super excited about and kind of, diving deep with me today. But with that said, shout out to my homie Jesse, who's always showing love and tuning in, and he's one of our biggest supporters. Please check out what Jesse's doing. Mr. Mercado is awesome. He's a learning experience designer that's doing big things on LinkedIn and elsewhere. Ted, Welcome to the show, buddy. How's it going, man?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well,
Quite
thank
the
you for
intro
making
you
time,
just gave.
Ted.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here, man.
How's your Monday going, man?
I'm pretty pumped, Things are just our field is like nonstop helping people. So I've already had a few opportunities today to help some companies do what they're trying to do, and it's inspiring. So I'm pretty excited.
Dude, I love it. I mean, and there's no shortage in cybersecurity threats right now. Everyone's getting hacked left and right. So I'm sure you're a busy man.
That is true. There is no shortage.
Yeah. Well, so tell us a little bit about yourself, Ted. How did you get into this field of work? Were you doing something different than what you're doing now before getting to this role? Did you ever flip burgers at McDonald's or something, man? What's Ted's origin story, man?
What is my origin story? It's like I'm a Spider-Man comic or something with an origin story. Yeah, so one of the things that I've learned about myself over my life and just reflecting on like the different milestones in my life, I realized each of the different sort of steps along the way, they were all driven by a small number of different principles. And at the time, I didn't necessarily understand that that was the principle that was driving me. But the benefit of hindsight is I could look back and say, okay, well, why did I do that thing? Or why did I choose to stop doing that thing and do this other thing? And really what I've identified by this point in my life, and I know that I'll certainly identify more as I continue to grow and get to know myself better. But the ones that really define my life are to do hard things that matter in the service of others and get better every day. And so those four things really define kind of like everything in my life. And so when I look back all the way to even being a little kid, I knew that those were the things that were going to define my career. And I had a few steps along the way, all of it defined by entrepreneurship. And, I started out I started a company that basically was like a business to consumer company. It was this kind of platform that made events, the logistics around events easier. And then I moved into water conservation, but it wasn't until I met who's now my business partner and we started talking about security as a field. That was when I knew that I was home. And because all those four factors that I mentioned, that's what you get to do every single day in the security field. It's nothing but hard things. It's all about helping others, and you'll never be successful at it if you're not trying to get better every day.
Man, the homie Jesse said he loves that origin story because he could probably relate. This guy's a hustler. Jesse's a hustler. He's always hustling, man, bringing joy to the world. So talk to us a little bit about the security field, man, because it's a field that I know a little bit about based on our past conversations, but you're the expert in it, man. You wrote Hackable, which recently came out. You're the #1 best-selling author in that category right now, and you continue because you're promoting it. But tell us a little bit of what inspired Hackable and why now, man?
Well, two things happened that really kicked my butt into gear to write this book. So the first thing was over the many years that I've been doing this, and as you mentioned, advising a lot of companies about how to better secure their systems, I noticed the first thing was that it seemed like I was having the same conversations over and over and over again. And it sort of distilled into these 10 categories. And I noticed that was really interesting, that everyone that I talk to has security is relevant to their business, they all have these same 10 problems. Now, not everyone has all 10, but everyone has some of those 10. And these 10 kept repeating themselves. And when I first noticed that, I thought, that's interesting. And that got me thinking. And I started thinking about, well, what's the solution to those common problems? If everyone's having these problems, how do you solve them? And that was the lightning strike that, really kicked my butt into gear, was when I noticed that everyone has some or all of these same 10 problems. And the conventional solutions to those problems are pretty universally backwards. And think about that. That's crazy, right? You've got people who are building their own companies and they know that security matters and is important to them. And so they recognize they have some challenges in order to do that. So they go out and try to solve those challenges. And the solution of those challenges doesn't actually help them solve the problem. And when I noticed that, I reject that. And I could not stand to accept that any further. And I do know the answer to those 10, common areas. And so that was that day when sort of that lightning bolt struck. That was when I decided it's time. I decided to start writing this book. And so that's what the book is. Each problem is contained in a chapter. There's 10 chapters, and it sort of talks about the whole process from how do you even think, what's the right mindset, all the way through to how do you capitalize on that? How do you turn that into business benefit? Because ultimately, businesses aren't going to do things just because it's the right thing to do. As much as we all want that to be the truth, we know that unfortunately that's not the world we live in. So it needs to not just be the right thing to do. Security is the right thing to do, but there needs to be a business benefit. And so that's why I wrote this book, and it's completely filled from page 1 to the last page with the exact guidance that I give all of our customers, whether, Amazon, Netflix, Google, all these like major companies, all the way down to startups that probably no one's ever heard of yet because they just got their first round of funding, and they've got an MVP that they're trying to bring to market. And it's the same advice that I give to everybody. It teaches you exactly what to do, how to identify the falsehoods and replace them with the right way to think.
Oh, I love that, Ted. Talk to us a little bit about some of the problems that you found in investigating and talking with some of your customers that inspired you to write this book. What are 2 or 3 problems that were relevant out of the stack of 10 that you're like, man, I have to touch on these?
There's many, as I mentioned, there's 10 of them, and then each one of them has maybe a hierarchy of problems into it. But one of the ones that really, I have a lot of empathy for people who are suffering with this, even if they don't realize it. But one of the real big problems is that there's such a misunderstanding of how you actually go about securing software. So, for example, a lot of companies who build software systems, they recognize that at some point they need to do some sort of security testing. Now, whether they realize that they need to do that themselves or their customer says, hey, we need you to prove that you're secure before you can do this, or maybe there's some compliance program they're going after. They recognize at some point, okay, I got to do some security testing. So I got to hire somebody to come and, poke some holes in my system and basically attack it and help me fix those issues before the bad guy does. And that's good. That is what anyone building software needs to be doing, assuming that there's something worth protecting. If it's just like a WordPress blog site, maybe that doesn't matter. But you're building an app that protects customer information or has a business behind it. But the misconception, the problem is where most people don't recognize the right way to do that. There's all these confusion of terms, and what winds up happening like all day long is that people will go out, they'll seek this service to help them do some testing. And what they wind up getting is something super cursory. So let me use a metaphor to explain it. So let's imagine cars, right? So when what a lot of people are wanting to do with their system, and system is analogous to a car. They're saying, well, I want to know what happens in a specific situation. So let's crash test the car. Let's literally drive it into the wall, see what happens. And based on that, we can determine what changes do we need to make. That's what people typically ask for, that type of thing. Now, of course, this is a metaphor. We're not actually crashing testing cars, but taking their system and saying, let's, pound it, find out what happens. So when they go and seek that type of service, the terms and the way that people think about these things is so convoluted and imprecise that what usually winds up happening, they're saying, give me the car crash test. And someone's like, yeah, I'll sell you the car crash test. And they buy the car crash test. And instead of the crash test, what they get is, when your check engine light comes on, and you go to like Jiffy Lube or whatever, and they plug that little device in, and it says like, oh, you have this weird thing is going on, and we'll do this thing to turn off the check engine light. That's what they're getting. So it's like, those are 2 really, really different things. Both kind of have to do with the car, but it's this heavy reliance on automated tools and on scanning that can only look for known issues. That's what people typically are getting. They're not getting hey, the car's out in the real world. We want to see what the impact is of a collision, which is, the metaphor for a cyber attack.
Yeah.
And that I have a really hard time with that, because people are paying money to try to solve a problem, and they're being sold the wrong thing, and they don't even know it.
And they're buying the wrong services essentially and implementing the wrong solutions. So you created a book to address that. It's powerful because I've definitely worked in organizations that have taken cybersecurity of extreme importance, such as Microsoft. But then I've also worked in organizations where I'm like, okay, yeah, no one knows what they're talking about because we're getting hacked every single day and there's all these threats. I want you to talk a little bit about for you, when you wrote Hackable and all of the marketing that you're doing with it right now, who was someone that inspired the book outside of customers that you were like, I got to write it for them, right? Because I have moms and dads in my life, and my sisters, they're not cybersecurity experts, but some of them still actually write their passwords on their in a sheet of paper, right? So who's someone that inspired you while you were going through the book writing process, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. There's two people or two groups, I could even say, that really played a pretty important role in this. One was, I dedicated the book to my parents, and the reason I did that was that they really inspired in me the idea of serving others. And that's really what this book is. Like, there's undeniable personal benefit to writing a book. It's you get your name out there more, and it's serving our security consulting business. We're getting more companies coming to us saying, hey, we have this security problem. You obviously know what you're talking about. We want to hire you. So like, there's undeniable benefits, but really it was an act of service, because I'm not going to get rich selling books. It's about, how do I help people solve their problems? And the second person that I was really keeping in mind, well, my parents are two people, but I guess the third person that was really in my mind as I was writing this was my 13-year-old nephew.
Wow.
And because one of the things that my editor recommended in the writing process, and this is something that will forever be with me, and this would be advice that I give to anybody listening to this about anything that you write about, anything, not even writing books, like an email, think about it this way, is how do I write it simply enough that a curious kid could understand it? And that's difficult with this subject matter, considering that it's, this incredibly technical and complex subject area that huge enterprises have tremendous difficulty understanding, not because of lack of intelligence, just because it's a hard subject. But if I can write it in a way where, like, I'm talking to my nephew and he can understand it, then I will have done everyone a service, because now the CTO who I wrote the book for is going to definitely be able to understand it. And so those people, obviously have close blood ties to me, but they were really instrumental in helping me get this done right.
Dude, that is awesome, man. It's so happy that you had their mental model in your head as you're writing the book. Now we know who to attribute the success of the book to, man.
Totally.
We're going to push into a different area with you as we talk. The future of work. A lot of people see it in many different lights and very different ways. How do you define the future of work, Ted, in the work that you do as someone that helps companies stay on the offense when it comes to being hacked?
Well, let me answer that question with a different question first, which is, people ask me this all the time, like, oh, well, what's your job? Your job is to identify and reduce risk, right? And that's true to that is true. Undeniably, that's true. These companies hire me and our company to help them find these flaws in their software systems so that we can help them fix those flaws. So at its most objective sense, yeah, that's my job. But really what my job is that my job is to foster, to empower innovation. Because really what I do is that I serve companies who are building technology that's going to change the world. And I make sure that that two things happen when it comes to security. Number one, security does not become the thing that prevents them from succeeding. So I make sure that the fact that they get hacked or whatever doesn't have an adverse impact on their ability to change the world in the way they're trying to change the world. The second thing is help them use security to actually gain a competitive advantage. And that's the big thrust of what my book's about. That's one of the big things that we give to all of our customers is like, okay, now once you've secured the thing, how do you prove it to your customers? And so in a way, and now this is a roundabout way to get back to your answer, what I do is I help everyone else who's driving the future of work. All of these innovators who are building technology to say, how can we collaborate remotely? How can we provide access to people in ways that get around traditional physical constraints like visa restrictions, or we can't hire somebody in some country on the other side of the planet because they're not here. Well, okay, well now the internet's changed all that, and technology's changed all that. And so my job is to make sure that we can continue to innovate so that companies can foster remote workforces that can leverage software and other technology to really drive the next advancement of whatever the business model is. And my job is to make sure that can happen.
Man, you're doing the Lord's work, Ted. No, you're definitely facilitating that to happen. And as remote work becomes the norm, it's already the norm. It was becoming the norm, and it was accelerated through COVID. The world's going to need more cybersecurity gurus, Zen gurus such as yourself, who are preventing the hacking. A lot of different companies, and we're starting to see this huge conversation around privacy and security abroad when it comes to the high tech areas, but that also applies to even maybe incumbent industries that are still trying to embrace digital innovation. So shout out to you, Ted, and all the work that you're doing. Want to have you show love to where people can follow you and your movement, get the book. We've shared a link to the website in the comments, but where else can people, spark that conversation with you, Ted?
Yeah, I'm a believer in simplicity, and I think the simplest thing is to just go to hackablebook.com. Whatever that you would need that was sparked or triggered out of this conversation, you'll be able to find there. So if you want to figure out how to connect me on social media, follow me on LinkedIn, whatever, that's all that information is there. You want to learn more about the book or buy the book, that's all there. You want to contact me because you have a problem you want to talk through, or you want to talk about hiring our company to help you solve your challenges, my contact info's there. So hackablebook.com.
Hackablebook.com. Ted, is there going to be a Hackable book too?
There might have to be. It's succeeding so well. It's clearly resonating. So we'll see. But nothing yet.
It's resonating, man. You got to come back on it and show us some love. Thanks so much, Ted, for making time, man. We appreciate you, and we hope to see Hackable Part 2 as well, man. Appreciate you, Ted.
Yeah, appreciate you, and thanks everybody for spending some time with us together.
Awesome, man. Talk soon, Ted.
Bye.
Peace. And shout out to Security Ted. That's his nickname. That's his brand, and that's his movement. Go make sure you check out hackablebook.com and get the book. It's a bestseller. He's killing it. And my apologies, y'all. Had some issues with the video. It went out on me. Got to do better in the future. But with that said, thanks so much for joining us. Please make sure to check out bigblacktea.com, which is our new tea brand that is making mad waves. Recently featured in Newsweek.com. Shout out to our customers for making that happen. Most specifically, Savannah Peterson. Savannah Peterson is the customer that made that happen. Got us featured in Newsweek, which is a huge earned press for us, which is a small to medium tea brand, a small to medium business. And we're doing a lot. We're punching above our weight class. Make sure to also sign up for the wait list if you're interested in learning and getting early access to Guide. We're getting better every single day. At Guide, every day is definitely day one, and we're leading our movement with you. And last but not least, aside from getting Big Black Tea at bigblacktea.com, please make sure, if you are interested, once again, your platform is our platform. Ted, his booking agency reached out to us and said, hey, we need to have Ted on the show. We think he would be great at speaking about this, this, and that. We made it happen. That can be you. Once again, our platform is your platform. If you're interested in speaking with us about the cool things that you're doing, whether it be you just launched your book, your podcast, your business, whatever it is, talk to us. We're here for you. Reach out to us at utfow.com. We'll make sure to look through our guest list. And if you are a fit, if you're doing something that we believe in, and it's leading an amazing movement, we're going to bring you on and we're going to show you some love and highlight you. All right, y'all. With that said, not going to leave y'all out cold. We'll play our amazing jams, crafted and curated by the Smoothication Experience team. Much love.
So give it a night. All the music some loving everywhere. So give me the night. All the music in the air, lots of loving everywhere. So give me the night. Give me the night. Give me the night. Give me the night. All the music in the air, lots of loving everywhere. So give me the night.